Today on Question Period.
What?
Battle lines drawn. Liberals are all over the map when it comes to Canada's mission in Afghanistan. Some for, some against.
We're fighting a war that can't be won.
Which viewpoint will prevail? Leadership hopefuls Gerard Kennedy and Scott Brison square off.
As Defence Minister Gordon O'Connor toured Afghanistan, Canada's role there came under new fire from NDP leader Jack Layton and from a top Liberal, the party that launched the mission in the first place. So to talk about Afghanistan and about that Liberal leadership race, we're joined by two of the 10 candidates. In Halifax, Gerard Kennedy, and in Montreal, Scott Brison. Thanks to you both for being with us.
It's a pleasure.
Mr. Kennedy, let's start with you. No great surprise that Jack Layton demanded a pullout. His party had already voted against extending the mission, but as we heard off the top of the show, you seem to be breaking from the pack in your party. What's wrong with the mission, do you think, and is it time to bring the troops home?
Well, what it's time to do is to get the mission redone, to get the mandate fixed so it has a chance of success. It's what the troops that we've sent there deserve, and it's simply put, it's what Canadians deserve in terms of having our principles to be carried out by the risk and by the expense that we're undertaking in Afghanistan. We simply have to make sure that there is a good prospect that we're building a civil society and not just occupying a troublesome part of the world. There is a problem with opium that has gotten worse, and particularly in this last year, it needs to be dealt with. There is no possible way to have success in terms of stability or security unless we reckon with the fact that the opium and the poppy trade has become 52% of the economy, and the international aid that was supposed to be there to help create other opportunities hasn't arrived. And that has created, I think, a situation that has to be rectified. Canada should be leading a review of the NATO mandate, and it should be happening immediately.
Mr. Brison, you voted with the Conservatives to extend the mission. Do you now share any of Mr. Kennedy's concerns, or in your mind has he just joined the cut-and-run gang?
No, I actually agree with Gerard that, in fact, I believe that if our government was in power, a Liberal government, we would be leading the way internationally in building support for a greater humanitarian commitment to the people of Afghanistan, in institution building, in investing in both social and economic infrastructure. Gerard's absolutely right that we need to do more to help the farmers move from opium to other crops. We need to do more to, in fact, ensure a sustainable economy for the people of Afghanistan. And it's important to recognize that this mission was started under a Liberal government, and the mission, in fact, with about 30 other countries under a NATO-led multilateral mission, is achieving some success. 2 million young Afghan girls have started school since the fall of the Taliban. In the most recent election, Afghan women actually had for the first time the right to vote, and in fact elected as a percentage of their parliament a higher percentage of women than we have achieved in Ottawa in our parliament. So I think there has been some success. Where I agree with Gerard is we need to do more, and Mr. Harper is failing Canadians in his inability and lack of willingness to actually be building that international support for greater humanitarian and institution building and social development there. And I think that's what Canadians want. I know it's what the people of Afghanistan deserve if we're going to have a successful mission there.
Well, one thing Mr. Kennedy pointed out, that Canada has spent about 40 times more on military operations in Afghanistan than on aid or development. I mean, has the mission changed, or is there a sense here that somehow Canadians have been misled by the Conservative government and by the former Liberal government about what this mission was all about?
No, listen, I think the former Liberal government understood there would be a time for a review, there would be time to look at the mandate. It was Mr. Harper's decision to steal that opportunity away from Canadians. He forced a vote, a debate in only 6 hours, and he didn't provide for the unique responsibility that a Prime Minister has to make sure that there's a chance of success if we're putting Canadian men and women in harm's way. And things have changed in Afghanistan. There's actually been some backsliding, that we have not won the hearts and minds because we haven't won the stomachs of the Afghani people. The aid is actually dropping that's there to provide for basic needs, and the opium trade gives an ATM to the Taliban and to other disruptive forces in the country. Mr. Harper has that responsibility. He has flubbed it up to now, and it has serious consequences. consequences, but it's not too late. He can immediately initiate a review of the NATO mission. He can say that Canada's continued involvement is contingent on that being a successful mission, and I do believe that there are other countries. The U.S. right now is looking at what its commitment is. It's still there as part of a coalition. It's in Iraq, and it's also saying, look, it's not working. A military-only option isn't having the success, and we're finding instead, in fact, that it's destabilizing our chances of actually arriving at what our original goals were. So we should be leading that exact same examination within NATO, and it should be happening right now.
I think it's important to recognize that the military component of the mission is important. And in fact, our brave men and women in uniform are serving the people of Afghanistan and Canadians well in what they're doing, working with international partners. But the humanitarian part of this is critically important, and I agree with Gerard. We need to do more. And Mr. Harper is failing to... Mr. Harper, Gerard, please let me finish.
Yeah, go ahead,
Gerard, Mr. Harper is failing to engage Canadians on this. Mr. Harper is more interested in pleasing George Bush than he is in engaging Canadians. Parliament should be engaged. The Foreign Affairs and Defence Committee should be briefed on a daily basis in televised briefings so that Canadians can be aware of what's going on in Afghanistan. The fact is Mr. Harper is acting more like the governor of the 51st state of the United States of America than he is a Prime Minister of Canada, and he's failing to engage Canadians in what is an
Gentlemen, if
important
I can just break in for a sec, because time is running out, I want to get on to the raison d'etre for both of you right now, the Liberal leadership race. It was a tough week for Michael Ignatieff, the alleged front-runner, it seems. First, he had to backtrack after saying his future in the party depended on who the leader is after the leadership convention. And now he's taking some heat over comments that the rules have to be set properly for a Quebec referendum to avoid a civil war. Intellectual honesty or rookie mistakes? Mr. Brison?
Well, I think, first of all, Michael's a very intelligent guy, and it does demonstrate there is a learning curve to politics. After 9 years in federal public life as a member of Parliament and as a member of a federal cabinet, I've learned myself, and I'm confident Michael will learn. He's had some success as an academic and also as a journalist. I think he has to concentrate on developing the political instincts over the next while and, you know, being a little more disciplined in terms of what he says and the words he chooses. And I'm confident Michael will do that over time.
Mr. Kennedy, does Michael Ignatieff lack the political instincts he needs to be leader?
Well, listen, I cut him some slack in terms of remarks. None of us are perfect. What I do is in this debate, I think it's starting to sharpen, is disagree with him on certain issues like Afghanistan. I think there's a different, more nuanced and more effective role that Canada needs to take. And that's, I think, what Canadians are going to increasingly hear from Scott, from myself, from Michael Ignatieff, is that there are differences that are being debated within the Liberal Party. It's very healthy. In fact, it's important. And some debates, like Afghanistan, are only taking place within the Liberal Party. But I certainly wouldn't stand here in judgment and say that I'm not going to make mistakes in the course of this leadership or not be misunderstood. But I really do think it's important now, and people are paying attention, that we are as clear as we possibly can be. There's an important future for Canada. To me, it is about our role in the world, how we're going to influence globalization so the working families in Canada will benefit. And what we do in Afghanistan, for example, actually comes back to our reputation and our effectiveness in that overall.
Quickly, next weekend in Quebec City, a Liberal leadership debate. You've both been working on your French, which is seen for both of you to be a weak point. Are you any better? Are you ready for the debate? Will you survive in French?
J'ai confiance, on va réussir en français. And I was, in fact, participated in a French language debate in Quebec City a couple of weeks ago. We did an event last night with all the candidates, or not all the candidates, but some of the candidates in the Eastern Townships, which was in French. And my partner's French, so we speak French at home. And I understand Gerard has an advantage in that regard as well.
Yeah, we share that in common. Scott, our partners are both French, and I'm sure they both expect not just perfect capability, but the ability to understand Quebecers and other French Canadians, and that's, I think, going to come to bear, not just in the Quebec debate, but in the rest of this leadership.
Right. Okay, good luck to you both next week. We'll be looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Roger.
Thank you.
Just a